Zoom.
Okay. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Clause 30A, Section 18, and the governor's June 16, 2021 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Great Barrington Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information on the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website, townofgb.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. See the instructions on the top of the agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Law 7C 30A Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body, or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. So we'll call the meeting to order with a roll call vote. Anne?
This is Anne O'Dwyer. I'm here.
Okay, Meredith, are you there?
I am here.
Michelle?
Here.
Okay, and Tom Blovelt cannot attend tonight, and Philip Weinstein, I am here. Okay, the next agenda item is the approval of minutes from the meetings of July, August, and September. I thought they were in pretty good shape, so do we have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of July 27th, 21st. We'll start with that one, I guess.
Any second?
And I'm sorry, are you just making a motion on one, not all the minutes, just July 27th?
Yeah, I mean, we can do all three if you all prefer.
I
but-
prefer not. I like seeing.
Oh, yeah, so I
the
just did the
different
one. Yeah, yeah,
I second your motion. And
thank you.
Okay, so
Any discussion?
any discussion? All right, roll call vote on that.
Aye, this is Anne.
Michelle, I.
Meredith, I.
And I approve it as well. Okay, next would be the minutes of August 24th. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion. Oh, sorry, Ann. I make a
Go ahead.
motion to approve the minutes of the August 24th, 2021 meeting of the Finance
second.
Committee.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion or comment?
Okay.
Okay, then do we have a roll call vote to approve?
This is Anne, I vote we approve.
Michelle, I vote to approve.
Meredith, I.
And I approve as well. Okay, so that's, and then next and last would be the minutes of September 28th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 28, 2021 Finance Committee meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, roll call vote. Ann?
Aye.
Meredith?
I.
Michelle?
Aye.
I approve as well. Okay, so all the minutes.
All right.
Okay, next on the list would be Finance Committee member reports or committee reports. I think that would be coming from Tom, and Tom can't make it tonight, so we'll have to defer that to our next meeting, I believe. Okay, the next is update from Sue Carmel, the Finance Director, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. So we have your operating budget reports. Are there any comments you'd like to make?
Do you want me to put it up on the screen? Would that be? helpful?
Sure, if you'd like. I don't have a lot to, I just lost my notes, which I may lose as you pull up the shared
Well,
screen.
actually, I'm getting, so Eileen, I think Eileen, are you still there? So hold on, you guys give me just 1 second. I'm gonna send Eileen the corrected ID, so hold on.
Yep.
Give me 1 second. So you guys, I just wanted, so Eileen is still trying to get in. She can't seem to get in by phone. And she's mentioning it's not clear that if people can't attend by phone, if the meeting can go forward.
Okay, so we're missing one digit on the webinar ID to use for phone access.
It seems like that's the issue. Hold on, I get another text.
Okay, did you send her the,
I did, yeah. So I'm trying to get this. Hold on, I'm going back to the. Actually, so give me 1 second. I'm gonna actually invite her separately, so. Ed, have you ever coordinated a meeting of a webinar with this issue, the phone issue?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No. No. But yeah, I assume what Eileen said is right. If people can't get in by the published way, I'm not sure we can have the meeting.
I agree with Ed on that, unfortunately, because it's accessibility. So Ann, is the issue the phone number or the webinar ID? Sue?
I think it's the webinar ID.
Webinar ID.
ID, okay.
And-
Not
and
the
you need
telephone.
that. And I guess you need that to come in by phone. Is that the issue?
No, the webinar.
Oh,
ID,
Eileen,
yes, you do.
Are you in? Eileen, are you there?
seeing Eileen Mooney on the screen here?
Yeah, she's also in there by phone. Eileen? What is the unmute is *6?
Yes, no,
Told I'm unmuted. Am I unmuted?
You
You
are
are
now,
unmuted.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, all right. I don't know whether it's legal or not.
Hmm.
If people can't get on by telephone. I don't know how many people want to get on by telephone. Chris Rimbold once pointed out to me that it's as though a tree limb fell and blocked people from coming a certain route. The meeting was still a meeting, and this was medical, is still legal, even though a group of people can't attend.
Hmm.
But I really don't know, except that the mistake is obviously in the posted information.
well, based on
I
what
don't
we're
know.
trying, yeah, my sense is that based on what we're trying to do tonight, which is simply more of a discussion than any type of vote or resolution, I would be inclined to proceed. But I will put that to a vote of the committee. I guess I make a motion to proceed even though we were missing a digit on the phone access.
There's nothing we're voting on tonight, it looks like.
Correct.
But as we know, our discussions are important, I mean, I go from meeting to meeting to meeting, just listening to discussion. That from which I form my opinions and, like I said, I would err on the side of caution. I'm just conservative in any event. So speaking only for myself.
Okay, do you want to make a motion?
I thought you just did, Bill.
I made a motion to proceed with the meeting.
Right, right. And no one seconded it yet.
Okay, all right, so there's no, right, so,
Second, proceed.
Okay.
I guess I just want to say, just for some discussion, that if we're discussing it, I think what we can do is ask the town to post the meeting ASAP so that people can have access to the discussion in as timely manner as possible. I guess the only thing is I'd hate for us to have to come back and sort of redo our discussion if it turns out this wasn't okay to go forward. But what is it, Eileen? It's as if there was one way to get to the meeting was blocked, but there were other ways still to get in. Is that the issue?
Well, people can still attend by Zoom.
Right.
Only if
I
they
can,
link.
I can listen by Zoom, but I can't talk by Zoom.
Right. No, I understand.
Can I just,
Tell-
oh, I'm
and
sorry,
the-
Eileen, go ahead.
The webinar number on the agenda is wrong.
Right.
And that is my opinion. That webinar number, you would have to key in to enter by Zoom. But I believe when you call in, you also key in the number.
You have to key it in by telephone, but I don't, when I just hit the link. I don't have to key it in by Zoom. On the other hand, there might be people who do. Oh dear, people.
It depends on your system you're using. I believe if I was at work and I was signing on, I would have to key in the webinar ID. At home, I just click the link and I'm able to get in. But like I said, I'll defer to, the vote on the committee. If you want to move forward, because I think Meredith seconded Phil's
Mhm.
motion. So let's just take a vote.
Can I just ask, wasn't Kathy on a few minutes? Kathy, are you there?
you might have to give her access.
Oh, okay. I'm asking her to unmute. Kathy, are you there?
I'm here. However, I'm not going to give any advice on this. I'm actually
Well,
listening, not as
I
a role
guess
of
I'm not,
the
oh
town
yeah, I'm
clerk.
not, I'm not asking your advice. I guess I'm just wondering how quickly can the recording of the meeting get posted since it is recorded?
All recordings of meetings are done through the select board office.
Oh, okay. So we don't know.
I mean, I think from another discussion, it seemed like a 24 to 48 hour time frame, and
Okay,
probably ask them to do it a little quicker for this circumstance.
okay. As long as, in my view, as long as the discussions get posted quickly, that gives people a chance to hear the conversations. So I'm fine with proceeding with the vote to continue.
Okay, so just vote to continue. Anne,
I vote aye.
Meredith,
Aye.
Michelle,
No,
and I vote aye. So 3-1, we will continue. Okay. So I think we were back to Sue Carmel and just some brief comments from her about the budget report. I think that's where we got cut off.
Yeah, Ian was gonna put up. the
I'm about
report.
to,
That's
I
when all
don't
the
wanna
problems
hold
fall.
up.
give me just 1 second. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so just going down, so Sue, tell me when you'd like me to stop. I'm just gonna pass through the minutes.
I'm not even looking at your screen because I have my notes in front of it, so I'm
Okay.
sorry. I'm just doing that for you guys. I'm probably not going to stop on anything specific. You know, as you all knew, I actually didn't plan to be attending this evening, so I spent a little time looking at this today. So the December budget, as you know, we should be approximately 50%. We're 6 months into the fiscal year, fiscal 2022. The overall budget is within the 50% range, so we are right on target for the overall picture. I think actually we are at 47% expended with 50.4% including encumbrances. And as you know, that's just money that is obligated but not expended at this point. So we're in good shape, bottom line.
So
Yeah.
Sue, I'm just scrolling down to the end of the report, because I think that's where that is, correct?
Yes, that's on the last page, Ann.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Mhm.
You might recall at our last meeting, I pointed out a few, you know, where it looks like the percentage, the average percent for various departments seem higher than 50%. Just want to remind everyone that typically is high because of money that's in the encumbrance column. If you just reflect on what was expended to date, you'll see that pretty much all the departments still fall under the 50% expended, with the exception of technology, as we've discussed in prior meetings. That is typically an annual, we pay annual subscriptions for software, so most of those are paid up front at the beginning of the fiscal year. I wanted to follow up on the veterans budget. That is page 9, I believe, Ann. And certainly stop me, anyone, if you have questions anywhere else. I'm going to get to 9 as well. So if you recall, at our last meeting, we discussed, I had pointed out that we're running year-to-date, actualizing it out for the fiscal year, that I'm anticipating several like $10,000 to $20,000 leftover money in that line item. And I did follow up with the veterans agent after our last discussion, and you know, really the reflection was more about, we've lost several veterans have passed away, so our numbers have dwindled, and that's why you don't see this being as high as past years. I can tell you what's not reflective on this report is the January benefits actually had a slight uptick, so we're now averaging around $4,500 a month, but I still anticipate there will be money left over in that line item. And I misspoke, it's 40 to 50,000 that I would anticipate. Really, I don't have much else to highlight. I'm going to be keeping an eye on snow and ice budget. You know, we've certainly had quite a bit of small and big snow events over the past month and a half. So I'm hoping we can squeak by with another year of not being in a deficit, but we still got a ways to go in winter.
Sue, can you clarify when was I see the column revised budget. When is that approved? Or when does that?
It's sure. Let me I'm going to bring you back up on the screen, I think. So the revised budget, Phil, what that signifies is transfers between line items. That's the most, I think, Ann, if you want to go up, can you go up towards the top, towards technology? I have a feeling that may reflect what I'm referring to. Oh gosh, I can't even see that. Yes, so if you notice on line 2, repairs and maintenance, the original appropriation, which was the town meeting vote, was 20,000. And you can see that the revised budget is 18,573. That's when departments are transferring between line items in their budget. So I think you'll see an increase in data services. I know it's kind of an oddball number. You also see an increase in the telephone line. So that doesn't have to be approved by anybody other than myself and the town manager. They are allowed to transfer between line items but like line items, salaries to salaries, expenses to expenses. They cannot transfer between non-expense and, excuse me, non-salary and expenses. They cannot do that. Does that answer that?
Yes, and then just for the assessor's office below, there was a reserve fund transfer of about 54,000.
So that is from last year, and that's a good one to point out as well. So that was, I think, prior to you joining the finance committee. I had come forward in the transition of assessors. We needed to have money to do the data conversion, the software change. And I believe we requested $60,000. So that was all encumbered on a purchase order. We entered into the contract before the end of the fiscal year. So that's carried over from the year before.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned that. I'd heard that before. Okay, well, thank you. If there are no further questions on this, then well, we have a question from Ann.
Ann has a question. Yeah. My hand is up. Let me just, mine is actually, I was just thinking, it's at the bottom, toward the bottom, on insurance. And I
Okay.
guess I'm thinking about insurance in relation to our discussion at the recent budget meetings. So it looks like, so if we take health and life insurance, we're at 50%. And now, am I correct in remembering that our discussion at the budget hearings, this is a budget line we thought we're over funding very generously, but if we're at 50% halfway through the year, we're going to spend all of that.
So actually, that question was asked during the budget meeting as well. I think, Philip, I think you had asked me that question. And what I had indicated is there's an allocation, I shouldn't use that word, the wastewater, the enterprise fund. I make a journal entry semi-annually to transfer over their share. And I had in order to get these reports out and being in the middle of budgets, I had not made the journal entry as of yet. So I was going to look that up and get back to you guys at the budget meeting. As to what that usually, I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Okay.
Although
So-
honestly, if you go, you know what, if you want to bring up the wastewater budget, I can tell you what that normally is. Give me 1 second. I actually have it up.
Is that toward the end of wastewater budget?
Yes, that's about 161,000
The long-term, where is
towards the
that?
bottom of there. So that's what, so it's about an $80,000
Oh, I see it. Yep. I
journal
see
entry
it.
I make twice a year.
Yeah, I see. Okay. I see. Okay.
And I believe we may be having another premium holiday, but I would have to double check that as
Oh, you
well.
mentioned that, right? I probably mentioned that. Okay. And then the medical services is slightly over. Is that again, this sort of carryover or encumbrances or?
No, the other insurance line items are maintained through the select board's office. And what that is, we actually have one of those transfers. It's a budget transfer that's in process, and you won't see the deficit in the next month's budget.
Okay.
But that's for various doctor required appointments, for onboarding, when they have to go for their physicals. So we had separated that out about 2 years ago because it was being charged in one of just the general insurance line item or the public safety. So it really needed to be separated out. So I believe that's more of our, the occupational physician that, when you have new hires and they have to have, their
Right.
physicals and all of that. But yes, there's been a transfer done to offset that.
Okay, that was where my only question was.
Okay, are there any other questions for Sue? I don't see any. Sue, I appreciate you taking the time tonight,
You're welcome.
and we'll probably see you tomorrow night.
Yes, you will.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next on our agenda, very briefly, I just inserted here a summary of the Massachusetts Circuit Breaker Tax Credit Program offered to seniors that I had come across and just thought would be helpful. as part of our long discussion on tax deferral, I think we all learned a great deal about some of these programs. I know I certainly did, and I just wanted to just sort of throw this into our packet. It's a very helpful program for seniors who are facing some issues. It is, like all of them, a quite complex program, but what is unique is that because it is applied through your tax returns, you can get some terrific assistance from the AARP Foundation that's organized locally through our senior center. So if you contact Polly at our senior center, you can get an appointment to get the tax help, which will help you file for this very helpful senior assistance program. And it's just highlighting seniors who may not even have to file a tax return could still be eligible for it. And also, you could also go back a few years and get 3 years worth of these credits. So there's a good reason to do this. So anyone who listens, anyone on our Zoom call tonight, if you know anyone who might need that help, just please let them know. But I think that it's well publicized, but just I put them in there just to get the word out a bit more. Moving on is item 7 on our agenda, and that is a brief follow-up point on our 41A senior tax deferral, which, as I just mentioned, is an item we've spent considerable time on. My only point here is, again, quite small, and I just felt it was appropriate to say that the potential modifications to the criteria that we all agreed upon in this committee and that the select board subsequently agreed to are subject to a vote at the town meeting. But however, if seniors who are looking to apply for this deferral program in this particular cycle, per state law, they need to apply prior to April 1. Actually, the language is they must apply on April 1 or 3 months after the actual tax bills are mailed. So I've asked the town staff to do a little more research on this point and just communicate exactly when that deadline would be, given those two pieces. It's a bit unclear to me. And I also thought it would be useful for them to just clarify the criteria that would be applying this year, which is the old criteria. So that's my only update. There's no particular resolution to this. I've asked the town to update that. And I'm going back and forth a bit with Mark on this point, so we'll try to update this further in the future. But it is timely given if seniors want to apply in this particular cycle. Okay, if there's no questions on that, I think we'll just move on to the next point, which is item 8 on the agenda, update on the 41C property tax exemption. Similar point here in that in the course of our tax deferral research, I think I certainly learned more about this particular program, which has been in existence for quite a while and is used by many Great Barrington seniors, Berkshire County seniors, and is a fairly successful program. What I stumbled over is the fact that with respect to the income test criteria for this exemption, the criteria is if you're a single, it's $20,000. If you're a married couple, it's $30,000. The town voted at town meeting, I believe it was either 2015 or 2016, to incorporate a cost of living adjustment to that number. And that particular adjustment has not been recorded in the criteria that's on the town website. So I've asked town staff to make that adjustment. What I've heard back so far is that if seniors apply for this exemption, the assessor's office is aware of that adjustment and will factor that into their application. But at this time, there's a one-pager on the website that still has that old criteria. So I've asked them to update that. That has not happened yet, but hopefully they'll get to it. I know there haven't many other things on their plate, but I just wanted to mention that as well.
Bill, can I just ask a quick question?
Please,
This is-
yeah.
So the handout or the information that you had in the packet, that's not what's on the website. That's something, this is something you.
Oh, that is actually a good point. That is exactly what's on the website right now.
Oh, okay.
If you
okay.
see on the limitations on the bottom, it says for a single, the income limit is $20,000. You're putting it up.
Yeah.
Right, so there you are. So it's $20,000. So it's just, that's an old criteria. It's not applicable. And my concern is that is, it's possible that that is causing a particular senior, either a single or a couple, to believe that they are not eligible for this senior tax property exemption. And so I don't think that's a thing we want to do.
And can I just ask, so this is an amount we can set and we can decide if there's a cost of living increase, or is this set by?
Well, the town did that at town meeting
Right, okay,
about 6 years ago. Yeah, so we can't, it's similar to a lot of the tax deferral items, in that it's up to the town via a town meeting vote.
okay, thank you.
We went through the trouble, we did that, and we just didn't update the website.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next item is item 9. Again, just a very brief point is I just wanted to propose for subsequent meetings that we invite representatives from the collector's office and the assessor's office to just talk a bit more about their current procedures and how things are working in their offices. I'd say my non-scientific anecdotal evidence that sort of triggered me to this is when you discuss property taxes with some people, they have a view that there are quote unquote many people who are not paying their taxes. I have no reason to believe that's true, but I think if that's something that we could shed a little sunlight on, I think that would be a productive exercise. There's also a related issue of how the town is handling significantly delinquent properties. So we could also hear about that. And I think it would be useful to ask Ross to come and speak to the committee to give us a sense as to how things are going in his new role, and maybe talk a bit about, a topic near and dear to everyone's heart, and that is the assessment timeline. Now, obviously, we can invite these folks. They may decline, or they may say that they'd rather speak to the select board. That's certainly possible. But I just thought it would be a good idea to invite them for subsequent meetings. So I guess I will. I did say there would be no votes, but I guess maybe if everyone just.
I don't think we have to vote to invite people. So
Right.
I
Agreed.
think
I agree.
I think we should invite them and have them come, even regularly in some way. So.
I certainly agree. I'm just trying to err on the conservative side here. Are there any other comments on this point? Okay, I don't believe, so it's pretty non-controversial, so we'll go ahead with that. Again, item 10, again, just something I wanted to just communicate very briefly. In that, there have been some prior conversations about the shift in the town's tax bill from semi-annual to quarterly, and how that might create a little bit of volatility or noise in the number based on that changeover. We've had discussions on that point. So there's a lot of factors going in there, but just to highlight, I actually went through it myself, and the increase in your total bill that you receive from the town, it turns out maybe a bit, the increase may be a bit exacerbated or increased by the fact that the Great Barrington Fire District tax that we pay, which is not from the town, it comes from the fire district, but it is billed through the town's real estate bill. That number actually increased by a relatively meaningful amount between the first bill you received and the second bill you received. And I don't want to go into the weeds on this, but long story short, there was a bit of an administrative error that was made in the prior year, so there was an adjustment for that. So anyway, what you may or may not have noticed is that the fire district tax rate on the first semi-annual bill for this fiscal year was 0.73. while the tax rate for the bill we've mostly recently received, the third and fourth quarters, was 1.03. So the dollar amount of that bill, of that amount on your bill is relatively small, but that number actually went up probably about 40%. Now, all of this is based upon your assessment, whether or not it went down or not. And so there are a lot of moving pieces, but again, the getting into the weeds, which I didn't want to do, but some folks who may have been surprised by the increase in their bill from the first 2 quarters to the second 2 quarters, a part of that bump, if that bump is that adjustment in the fire district tax bill. So hopefully I explained that relatively well.
Phil, can you see people's hands when they go up on the screen?
I do not see their hands right now.
Oh, Michelle has her hand up. So are you on gallery view, Phil?
No, I see it now. It was a little bit delayed.
Okay,
I see it now.
okay.
So,
I
Michelle?
just want to comment that I think we should point out, not everyone who receives a tax bill has the fire district on it. If you're
Very
in
good point.
Housatonic,
Yeah.
we in Housatonic, we have our own issues. So,
Right. Yeah, very good point.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah,
all
sure.
right, and so I'm just concerned that somebody may be looking at their tax bill going, I'm not seeing this, and but just to make it clear, fire district is the water source.
Correct, yes, yes, yes.
To Great Barrington proper residents. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
It's a very good point. Okay, so again, that's a very quick item.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay, then next item is the update letter from Southern Berkshire Ambulance. And really just a matter of getting this information out to a larger audience, which I think is a good idea. This is a letter, and it's in the packet. A 3-page letter that came from Caleb Stone, the new chief of operations at Berkshire Ambulance. It was sent to the town manager, the select board, and the finance committee. It took a little while for it to get to us, but it got here. And just very quickly, I think it's actually very good news. They're doing Caleb is so far doing a terrific job of improving the operations at Southern Berkshire Ambulance. So he's terrific new leadership. They have several new members of their board of directors, which is always a good thing. They've done a good job of improving their billing practices, which is critical to their cash flow. And again, all of this is laid out in much more detail in the letter that's in the packet. The good news is from the town is that because of this positive performance, they will not need any municipal subsidy from the town, which they had requested last year. And there certainly was probably a decent likelihood that there was an expectation that they may ask for more money, additional subsidy this year. So they're not asking for that, which is very good news for the town. They are in fact asking for a portion of our ARPA funds for equipment. And the total request is $250,000, of which they're asking Great Barrington for about half, which is, to me, it's a fair request, given that they're basically allocating that request on the same basis as the ARPA money was allocated to the town, which is based on population. So again, this is all very good news. Those who are interested, the full letter is in the packet. It's good news. We're just trying to get that good news out to a larger group. Ann.
Yeah, I just actually following up on that. I just want to I commend the SBAS. I thought their fundraising material that they put out were in either December or early January. I'm now forgetting exactly when. But one of the things we asked them to do was and I thought they did a really nice job. It certainly got me to up my donation to them. So we asked them to do it, and I'm really pleased that they followed through. So.
Okay, all right. Next topic is just, I thought it would be is on the room occupancy tax, and this is related to our public discussions on the potential new regulations regarding short-term rentals. Obviously, this has been a fairly extensive conversation that certain town officials and residents have been participating in. The only objective here is to, in some small way, respond to various requests for more data relating to the topic. It turns out that that while previously the data breaking out the taxes that the town receives from short-term rentals versus traditional lodging, as the term the state uses, previously that information was not available, but they have since made that available. So this spreadsheet here is just an aggregation of the data that I had requested from the DOR. I received it in a handful of emails, and just for convenience, I just copied into this very hopefully simple and easy to understand schedule. And again, I think in order to assist the public discourse, I thought it'd be appropriate to sort of get that out to a broader audience. I don't particularly think this moves the discussion one way or the other in a meaningful way, but it puts some information out there. I think certainly the good news is, one thing that's very clear is that the aggregate tax revenue to the town for fiscal 22 will be significantly higher than fiscal 21. So that's good news. Ann, you had a point?
Yeah, can I just ask, am I reading this correctly, that the traditional lodging revenue has more than doubled? Or,
Well, again, this is the taxes received. This is
I'm sorry, tax revenue has more than doubled? Is that from, let's say, 86,000 in December of 2021 to 230,000 or 231,000 in December of 2022? Am I reading that correctly?
That's my belief, yes. So yes,
Wow.
so it's good news.
Okay,
The town
Alright.
seemed crowded, and that's why.
wow, okay. Yeah,
So that's that schedule. And the following page was just an historical schedule, which was not broken out, that Sue Carmel had previously provided to the town at a meeting several months ago. And just to anchor people who look at this, the fiscal 2021 total of 562,000 is the same as my schedule. So all I've done is broken out by category. Hopefully that some modest way helps that discussion. All right. Now we move to discussion of residential property tax exemption study presented to the select board on Jan 10th. And just a brief, just a couple of notes of context on this. This got a fair amount of attention. So just to clarify, what is this study? Rewinding the tape a bit, back to November of last year, the Finance Committee, among others, were participants in what is known as our tax classification hearing, where we're formally setting the tax rate for that particular year. As a part of that meeting, which obviously is every year, the town is making a declaration as to whether or not they are using the residential tax exemption alternative, which was given to us by state law. And this year, as in prior years, we said, no, thank you. We will not use the residential exemption option. At that point, I believe Ed Abrams, who's on this call, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe I could summarize his comments by saying, we have this discussion every year. We haven't been given any data or some type of analysis to make that determination. So let's think about going forward, maybe providing the town with a little more data or analysis relating to this option, and we could use that going forward. So hopefully I paraphrased Ed correctly. He can on that point. So at that point, the assessor's office engaged an outside consultant to put together a study basically analyzing the impact of this potential alternative that the town has, and really focused on, the mathematics of how it would work, and just to give people something to chew on as they think about it. There are just broader context. This has obviously been a controversial topic for the town, covered in depth probably about 5 years ago. Back then I read, and I've subsequently reread a lot of the very thoughtful comments that property owners put forth in various forums, sort of expressing their pro and con views on that. So I'm aware of that, and I appreciate their prior comments. And again, the effort here is just to provide a forum for some more discussion. We had at least one member of our committee who specifically requested an opportunity to discuss this particular study. So that was probably, again, another very material catalyst for this particular conversation tonight. So again, the idea is public discussion relating to a very useful study that was put forth a couple of months ago by the assessor's office. Again, that's the context for this discussion tonight. There's been a question about whether or not we would consider some type of vote amongst the committee to make a recommendation on this point to the select board. Skipping over our technological problems for a minute, I have certainly never thought we were anywhere near the ability to make any type of recommendation on this point. It's quite complex and requires, such a recommendation would require a great deal more of additional work. But obviously that's something that we can discuss tonight as a committee. So on that point, Ann, you had a question or a point?
Well, I just want to agree with you that I too don't feel ready to certainly to make any recommendation or any type of vote. And Phil, I know Michelle might have a comment or a question, but also it just is this information on the handout that I can put up on the screen at some point if folks want? Are there any, are there things that we should be noticing here? I don't know how to put this information in some sort of context.
Okay, well, if let me let Michelle speak, but if
Yeah,
you-
sure, and then we can go to that.
I'll try to do a very quick overview of what I believe it says, but
Okay.
obviously the reader can make their own determination. And I'm sorry, I would say that if you wanted to know more, the consultant who put together this study obviously spoke at that January 10th meeting. So there was additional very interesting detail from the consultant that's on the recording of that committee.
Okay, I'll check that. Okay, thanks.
Michelle?
Yeah, and I would highly recommend that if, obviously, we're not going to get in deep discussion tonight on this, without at least finance committee members should review the materials that were presented in August 2015, which were extensive. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at the screen, a few people who had presented at that meeting, myself included, brought forth considerable research on the topic. I myself interviewed numerous towns in Massachusetts who had entertained the residential exemption. So I have a report on that. I actually had a PowerPoint for that meeting. So in order to put our discussion in context, we need to know the historical before we look at the current, where it's coming from. It would be, I think, as committee members, wise to review the materials on both sides that were presented back in 2015, and where are we now today on this. I just want to keep in mind at this presentation back in 2015, it wasn't just a group of citizens with off-the-cuff comments. They presented data, analysis, and research. And so I think we should honor that by reviewing it before we get into deep discussion, not just this report here.
So, Michelle, are you discouraging us from a discussion tonight on that basis, or?
Oh, yeah, definitely, because I myself haven't done, I thought we were just going to bring it forward. I mean, in the packet, we have this report. We have nothing else. So I think before, I would like to mark it up for another meeting. So, I mean, I was part of the discussion back in 2015. And if you asked me, okay, what was some of the information brought forward, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. So not realizing we were going to go knee deep into a discussion and possibly do a recommendation. There's a lot of information, Phil, from 2015, and I think members should look it over. If you, obviously, if you want to do some talk about it, that's not an issue at all. But I think we're talking about something we don't have all the information on.
Well, I mean, we'll make it a more of an interactive discussion. I certainly agree with what you're saying. I certainly agree with you. We don't have the information, enough information in front of us to make any recommendation. And again, my current thinking is I don't believe we should be making a recommendation on this point. But I do believe that there was, and I'll let Ed speak up on this. I think there was a request for a study. A study was provided to the town by a consultant. That study, reflects a bit of new information. We can add that to the pile of analysis and data on this topic. And obviously it's relatively recent data. So it's useful, and then it provides a hypothetical assessment of how this would work based on current data.
Right, exactly. But like I said, to combine the historical information with the current information as we move forward, I think would be just an intelligent way to go.
Okay, noted. Yeah. Ann?
I just jump in really quick, and I know Ed has his hand up, but I wonder if Michelle, I don't know if you still have the PowerPoint from
I
2000.
do, as a matter of fact, I was going to ask Phil as chair if I could share it. I don't, I'm, as a matter of fact, I'm looking at it. I have it both in a text, Word document and a PowerPoint. And like I said, that was my contribution to the discussion back in 2015. And like I said, I'm seeing a couple people on the screen right now who researched other aspects of the residential exemption and presented. So as I said, obviously, this was 2015. We have a current report, but it wouldn't hurt us to look at some of the historical information on it.
Agreed. What I would suggest, though, is let's not add additional information tonight that was not
Exactly,
included in the
yeah.
packet.
If we can include it in the
If
future
we,
packet.
if we want to have an additional discussion on this topic and go over the information that was referenced and put together and thoroughly researched back in 2015 and 2016, we can elect to do that at a future meeting. There is no time constraint on this discussion with respect to, just this meeting.
Right.
But I don't think we should be, putting information in front of the group on the screen that hasn't been included in the package.
That was not what I was suggesting. What I was saying is between now and another meeting, sharing it with the chair who would distribute it to finance committee members.
Sure, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that would be great.
I know the OO now.
Can we let Ed speak?
Okay, go ahead, Ed.
Thank you. You hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
First of all, that you did not put words in my mouth. You did a wonderful job, Philip. So thank you. The thing that you did say, which I want to say again, is this is a decision we are required by law to make every year, and we do make it every year. The difference in 2015 is it was actually an actual discussion as opposed to a rubber stamp of what the Board of Assessors said. And what happened this year is I'm just not comfortable rubber stamping what the Board of Assessors says without knowing why they said it. Not that I don't trust them entirely. So that's what I had asked for. And I think you're entirely moving in the right direction. sort of go forward and look at the numbers. I would ask that you try and find numbers as opposed to stories, because what I remember from 2015, and they didn't come to our committee, right? It was all done in front of the finance committee, and I was there. But by the time it got to the select board, the decision, we didn't even debate it. Is people are telling stories about seniors who are in a house that appreciates, and now all of a sudden they're going to get hit with a big tax bill. And other people are telling stories about, poor people who can't afford the taxes and how many will get saved. Other people telling stories about rentals, and other people telling stories you can get around the rental problem. So to the extent you can come up with actual numbers so that we know how much of these stories are true, that would be really helpful. And I thank you for even taking it up. That's all. I honestly have I have not made a decision on this. I just want to have all the information when we're forced to make it. Honestly, I can't believe that 5 people get to make this decision. It's one of those I think ought to go to a bigger group. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. I guess, one point I would make is that, and certainly this comes from some of our recent discussions about assistance to seniors who are having problems paying their property taxes. I think there's a significant portion of our community would agree that our taxes are higher than we would like them to be. And there's general agreement that there are probably people who are having significant problems paying their taxes based upon their economic situation. So I think there's a fairly widely held view that there are people who are economically challenged in our community, in our town. The question is whether going down the path of a residential exemption for the property taxes is an effective tool to address that problem. I would say in general, I don't believe that that's an effective tool, because it's basically utilizing a very blunt instrument to fix a very fact-specific set of problems. So I would, at a big picture level, I would advocate for further consideration into a variety of alternatives to assist those who are having problems, utilizing some type of needs-based system or means-tested symptom, means testing and needs-based, whereby we do a little more of a accurate assessment as to who exactly has the financial difficulties and how much assistance can we give to them. At the other end of the spectrum, applying a change to address certain problems where the aid is based solely upon the value of your house and has nothing to do with whether or not you can pay the bills or not, or whether or not your property tax bill is mailed to an address within the town of Great Barrington or outside of Great Barrington. To me, those are much less precise, much less effective, and to me, not as an equitable way to address certain of these concerns. So, yeah, I've expressed a very high level opinion on this, which probably, maybe that's not a good idea, but I did that anyway. So but I also feel it is important to just have more conversations on this topic to try to just have a better understanding as to the pros and cons. I will let Chip Ellitzer speak. As certainly one individual who spent a lot of time on this over the years.
Thank you, Phil. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. I like the very measured approach this committee has taken. So I want to start by complimenting. I also am in favor of I'll call a high level or strategic approach to the problem. I'm a big believer in numbers, and I like to start with numbers. But I also am cautious about going down rabbit holes. So when we're looking at the question of whether this would be good public policy to adopt a residential exemption, I think there's certain things that we know already, and we don't necessarily need a study of numbers. The consultant study, in my view, was not broad enough, not focused on the knock-on effects of implementing a policy or not implementing. And as, in fact, as Ed is in another forum has properly pointed out, if you have the residential exemption, you're effectively reducing tax rate for some holders of property and raising them for others, because the total amount that needs to be raised is fixed for that year. So it's a zero-sum game in terms of you're helping some, you're hurting. Without looking at the numbers, you can say that if, for instance, half of the tax base of assessed property value is going to benefit and half is not, it means if you reduce the tax rate by 30% for one half, you will raise it by 30% for the other half. On the other hand, if you have a third of the tax base being affected, not necessarily the head count, we're talking about the total tax base of the property. If a third of it is affected and 2/3 is not, or is benefited by it, then a 30% reduction in 2/3 of the tax base would cause a 60% increase in the tax rate for the other third. That's not something that needs study. That's just sort of mathematically true to the point, right? The question then becomes, what is the best way to reduce taxes for, what's the best way to reduce the tax rate overall? And the obvious answer is to broaden the tax base, to increase the amount of taxable property. What's the best kind of taxable property to increase the tax base? Well, there's another factor that wasn't factored in by the consultant, which is that 70% of the money that's raised from taxes locally is spent to meet our obligation to the Berkshire Hills Regional School District. 70% compared to less than 30% for Stockbridge. In a way, we're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic if we're talking about a residential property exemption that may or may not be effective, but will have a fairly minor impact overall and sort of a one-time saving for a certain category of taxpayers. But then maybe you've killed the golden goose, because what you've done as a matter of tax policy has been to do the opposite of what we should be doing. We should be encouraging more expensive homes, more property being built, and more second homeowners in those homes, for the reason that they don't typically bring their children to our school district. And the school district assessment, the allocation of the school budget, is based almost entirely on student headcount. The reason Stockbridge has a much lower tax rate and a much lower, we pay 3.5 times the tax rate on our property to support the school district as Stockbridge does. The reason is Stockbridge has a much higher percentage of second homeowners. They put many fewer children to our school district than Great Barrington does, because, as I like to point out in a somewhat simplistic but true way, relative to Stockbridge, Great Barrington is kid-rich, property poor. Stockbridge is the opposite. They've got more property than children over the school district. So from a public policy standpoint, we should not be waving a red flag or pulling out the welcome mat in front of people who might be considering, who would like to move to the Berkshires, might be considering Great Barrington. But why would they consider Great Barrington if Great Barrington, by virtue of implementing a residential exemption, is raising taxes on them as non-primary residents, or even for residents who wanted to improve their property or build larger houses or do add-ons, incur getting on the wrong side of the residential exemption. So just from the standpoint of what would benefit all of us in terms of lowering our tax rates across the board would be to broaden the base, not to discourage the broadening of the base. And I don't think any of us can argue with a straight face that implementing the residential exemption wouldn't go in the opposite and wrong direction in terms of what we should be doing, which is encouraging the growth of the tax base. There's a lot of other arguments could be made. You've had the link to the article I had, like basically laying out the case against the residential exemption. Good intentions, bad policy. That was in the Berkshire Edge in November. There was also the Berkshire Edge article immediately following the Finance Committee session at the Firehouse that was very well attended back in August of 2015. Again, I'd encourage people to look at that. So it's a lot of other arguments to be made, but that's the most succinct argument. And thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Chip. We'll recognize some others. Obviously, I would ask the speakers to kind of keep it to a, we'll call it a 3 to 5 minute maximum. And just be kindful to our Finance Committee members, given we have another committee member meeting tomorrow night and Wednesday. Vivian, I'll recognize you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Am I on video? Should I smile?
No, I'm just seeing seeing a black
I mean,
box.
you can smile, but we can't see you.
Okay, thank you. I'll send smiling intentions to you and to everybody else listening. Yeah, as has been mentioned, the consultant's report, I think it should be reviewed by the Finance Committee thoroughly. From my experience with you, your committee, you're the ones who really take the time to dig into things and examine and analyze. The select board it has much more on, has much more to do, and as a result, generally does not spend the same type of repeated meetings dealing with issues that require that type of thing. So one of the things that people could look at even today is a letter from your former finance chair, Sharon Gregory, that was published in the Berkshire Edge, which raises key questions about some, but far from all of the salient issues that the consultant's report lacks. One of the things she points out, which I think needs to be repeated again and again, is that the residential exemption is not progressive because it doesn't take income into account. And people, life happens. In many cases, people who were able to buy a house 20, 30, 40 years ago had adequate income to maintain it for that time. Their incomes have decreased. There's illness, there's disability, there's unemployment, there's bankruptcy, there's divorce, death of a spouse. And for all seniors, in many cases, there's retirement, which tends to reduce income levels. So a reality check, I think, is needed on this so-called progressive aspect of this tax. And also the consultant's report is presented without context. I think it was Anne who raised the need for context. We should learn from what works and what doesn't work in other Massachusetts towns and cities. Although the state law authorizing local residential exemptions was passed more than 40 years ago, only 16 municipalities in the entire state have chosen this option. And they are Boston and 9 suburbs of Boston, along with 6 resort towns on the Cape. And what all these municipalities have in common is that they have a very large proportion of non-residential housing ownership, many apartment buildings and multifamily units to absorb and disperse the tax shift so the impact doesn't fall too much on any one small group. But Great Barrington does not have that profile. They also, the towns, all the towns with the residential exemption also have lower tax rates than Great Barrington, especially the 6 resort towns on the Cape, which use the residential exemption. All of them have tax rates less than 10% of less than 10% in general. And for example, Provincetown's tax rate is less than half of Great Barrington's. Nantucket's tax rate is 3.74%. So that when they increase people's taxes, it's not exactly going to the level that would happen if taxes were increased from our base here in Great Barrington, which is, 4 or 5 times that. On the other hand, we have more in common with the towns that have rejected a tax shift. I would hope that the Finance Committee would look at that too. Michelle did a fantastic job researching that when this proposal was first raised in 2015 for a residential exemption. She contacted assessors in 7 towns that had carefully considered a residential exemption and then rejected it. She contacted the assessors in Concord, Hingham, Mashpee, Newton, Sudbury, Weymouth, and Lexington. And her report is in the minutes of the August 20th, 2015 Finance Committee meeting. I guess hopefully you'll go into that at the next meeting, but I couldn't resist picking out a couple of comments from that report. For example, in Mashpee, they researched it thoroughly. And even though I think they had 50% non-residents ownership in Mashpee being a resort area, they said that wasn't enough. According to our research, this exemption is not an ideal situation for most communities. When you run the numbers, most of the communities with a residential exemption, even residents aren't seeing the benefits that were originally thought, and they have a devil of a time undoing a residential exemption once it's implemented. And then in Newton, they had similar concerns, and they said that shifting within the residential class, which is what the exemption does, it was not the best interest of their city. And in Lexington, the assessor was very forthcoming. He said, be careful, because requiring out-of-town owners to pay disproportionate taxes now may lead to unintended consequences of discouraging future tax development in Great Barrington. I think that sums up in a nutshell what Chip was alluding to. And as the Lexington assessor said, there's always a catch, right? So we can learn from. There's much more in Michelle's report that we can learn from. And just to conclude, a couple of other brief points, although having studied this now for over several years, it feels like Groundhog Day coming back to it again and again. I will limit myself to 1 or 2 more comments. Despite its name of residential exemption, this tax shift impacts not only second homeowners, but also local businesses, renters, and longtime local residents. Furthermore, it's a disincentive for some of the solutions that could help increase affordable rentals, such as homeowners to add accessory dwelling units or structural improvements to permit them to do full-time rentals and to help their own income situation. With a residential exemption, anyone who makes improvements on their home or even adds an extra accessory dwelling unit risks being pushed out of this single tax rate into extra taxes due to the residential exemption, because the value of their home would go up. And
Vivian, can I ask you to conclude your comments, please?
Yeah. So I hope that you'll continue to look into this, and having discussed the senior tax deferral with you very thoroughly over several meetings, I hope that you will devote equivalent attention to this matter, which would have even much broader impact and many consequences, even and especially perhaps for seniors who've lived here in town for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. One comment I'll make just in defense of the consultant that put together the study. I think it's highly likely that the consultant was given a very short amount of time and relatively limited resources to put together this work. One could easily put together a 300-page study on this topic. This was a three-page illustrative example of how the math would work if we were to apply it through the assessor's office. So I think they did leave out many of the other non-quantitative issues that we're all alluding to tonight, but in fairness to the consultant, I don't think he was really given an opportunity or the means to do that. So just to clarify that. Let's let Richard Stanley speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. There's no sense in me reiterating all the things that have been said. In fact, one of the things that Chip said about the way schools are funded and his admonition to encourage second homeowners. I've been singing that song since I realized what a bargain Great Barrington gets by having a lot of second homeowners owning property and not using the services. I mean, wow, you couldn't come up with a better formula. So clearly doing anything possible to grow that segment is a plus. And the other thing, and that Chip said, as a businessman, you know, I don't like to make decisions on emotional basis. Show me the numbers. And that's where a discussion should begin. And frankly, I wasn't really going to speak after I heard you, Mr. Chairman, outline your own feeling about it and how it should be analyzed in a step-by-step way. Frankly, you almost took the words out of my mouth. So I'm not going to go on and reiterate things that have already been said. My final words, which also have been said, beware of the law of unintended consequences. Anyhow, thank you.
Thank you. Vivian, did you re-raise your hand or is that?
No, oh, sorry, I should have lowered it. Sorry.
Okay. All right, okay. Thank you. Okay, Anne, you had your hand up?
I had raised my hand. I am, at the time, I just wanted some context for the numbers from this consultant. I am fine waiting until I've had a chance to look at the 2015 report. I did do some research on my own, also looking at Provincetown. Just a heads up, I was wondering how they made it work. And Vivian, I noticed a lot of the differences that you noticed between Provincetown and us. So I'm fine waiting for a larger discussion where this report from the consultant is in the context with other information as well. I just didn't, that's what I didn't have, like, well, how to make sense. What am I supposed to, and I understand that consultants often just want to give you the numbers. They don't want to interpret them for you. They want you to interpret them yourselves, but I could use some help interpreting these numbers, but it doesn't have to be tonight.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you. Yeah, again, the consultant's report I don't think I need to go through it. It's just laying out an illustrative example as to if you set a particular residential exemption system or a particular allocation that you're looking to achieve, how will the individual's property tax bills be affected? So it just sort of works its way through the model.
Okay.
And as mentioned earlier, it's a zero-sum game, and some will pay more taxes and some will pay less. And this is just providing more detail as to exactly how that would work. And it does begin to highlight some of the unintended consequences that have been alluded to here. So I think, again, hopefully we've had a constructive conversation tonight. We're not anywhere near any kind of type of recommendation. That's also an open point as to whether or not we even need to proceed with more discussion and a recommendation. I actually, what I would propose for a vote is that we conclude the conversation here, and we could just bring it up at our next meeting, where hopefully we have full attendance and all our open meeting requirements have been met to the letter. We could bring up whether or not we want to proceed with this in any further way. And there's also the matter of we understand it's the composition of our committee will significantly change in May, so we may want to consider as one option for consideration, picking up the conversation with the new members or the new member. So
Okay.
I don't know if we need to vote on that, but what do you think of that, Anne?
I support that.
Okay, well, I think we can, Michelle, are you okay with that?
I'm fine.
Okay, and it is a good point. I'll take a look at your presentation back from 2015. I did not reread that one. But I appreciate your input back then as well as tonight. Okay, moving on. Let's see.
I think it's the scheduling. Hold on, I'm just trying to find my stuff again.
Yes, moving on to our schedule. Yes, the future meeting schedule, I just laid out on the agenda the schedule actually that Anne had suggested to the town some period of time ago. And this is what's on the town calendar. And I would advocate keeping to this meeting, but keeping to the schedule, but I wanted to run that by the other members.
I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen so I can look at my calendar. So,
Okay,
so March 15th, April 19th, May 17th. And we have the budget hearing March 1st, correct?
correct.
Yeah. Yeah, it works for me. Thursdays.
Michelle and Meredith, is that okay with you?
As of this point in time, it's okay with me, but my time's not my own at work, so circumstances may change.
Understood. Understood.
Yes, that's all right.
All right, great. So then we're agreed. We'll just leave those meetings on the calendar. Finance Committee member comments. Ann?
Yeah, I just want to actually just say how much I really appreciate the 6:30 start. I was in a state of panic tonight when I thought I had to get home for 6, and it was really helpful to have the 6:30 start. I'll just say that. I also just want to ask about the minutes from the November and December meetings. Are those, I think we did talk briefly at the most recent budget hearing that there's a new minute person, a meeting minute taker. Any updates on that?
Well, I'm aware of the problem. I'm not aware of the new minute taker. So that's certainly something that we have to get better information on.
Okay, okay.
So we know that the ACE person that you had working for you is no longer available to us, so we need to have a replace. But Mark has alluded to the fact that he has a solution for us, so we just need to get more detail on that, and we'll get to that.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, well, citizen speak time, even though we've obviously had a fair amount of that so far, but any more citizen speak? Seeing none, media time? Okay, all right. On that point, we will, it's almost exactly an hour and a half. We will adjourn the meeting. By
I think
unanimous.
we take a vote. We take a vote to adjourn. Yep.
Good point.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I second the motion.
Roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Michelle, I.
Meredith, I.
Thank you all.
Aye.